So today we're going to work on the roof rack. So because I have an aftermarket fiberglass rooftop on this Ford Econoline, what I'm going to show you is how I was able to actually build my own custom roof rack that redistributed the weight away from the fiberglass and onto the actual metal of the van. And depending on what van you have, I think you could apply this video to your own build, because it only cost me a couple $100. It did take me a couple days, but I'm super proud of it, and there was no other way to do this. And the reason is because the rooftop is fiberglass, so I can't even sit on the roof up there unless I sit on my roof rack. So I had to redistribute any weight that was going on the roof rack to the actual support beams within the inside of the van. Okay, so now looking at the roof of the van, we're gonna put crossbars right here where I'm pointing. And I wanna point out real quick that I would have put the solar panels and the lights on the crossbars. I just messed up the order. And as you can see, I mean, these things aren't going anywhere, and that's because they are tapped into the structure of the van with this fancy hardware I got from Home Depot. And that hardware you're looking at on the inside sticks out on the top, and that's what it's mounted to. Hey, I've been building camper vans for over 4 years, and while working alongside industry professionals, I filmed and edited every single step to make a masterclass on how to build campers. It includes over 40 tutorials, as well as discount codes from insulation companies, solar companies, electrical companies, all totaling almost the full cost of the course itself, as well as lifetime expert consultation from me. Yes, that's right. If you have a question during your van build, which I promise you will, I check daily and will answer any kind of questions you have. A link to check out Van Build Budget Pro will be linked down below, as well as all of the products used in this tutorial. So for the roof rack, I use these things called unistruts, and you're looking at them right now. You can find these at Lowe's or Home Depot. They're made out of galvanized steel. So I went on the roof and I just measured the length of the bars that I needed. Right here, we're looking at this one being 36 inches. 2 of them were 36, and then 4 of them I believe were 16. But I just started making my cuts with my circular saw, so I had all of the crossbars measured and cut exactly how I needed them. I do want to point out that I swapped my blade out of my circular saw with a blade that's made for cutting metal. Okay, so we have all of our bars cut and our hardware laid out, which I'll go over later. So I found these long bolts, and that's what's going to poke through to the outside, and to make sure that your drill bit is the same size, you can just hold it up to the end there. And because it's such a big drill bit, we're going to start with a pre-drill going from small to medium to large. So as you can see, these are the holes going through the support beam and out through the fiberglass, so that way we can stick the bolt through and have it poke all the way to the top, which is going to be the mount. So I start by getting my drill bit in a little bit of olive oil, and what that does is as metal heats up, it's harder to cut, so it actually keeps the temperature down while also lubricating the drill bit. So I started with my smaller drill bit just to pre-drill the hole, and then went to the medium drill bit and poked through, and then went all the way up to my 3/8 drill bit and punched it all the way through. So as you can see here, we have our holes, and I just focused on the support beam itself right now. So once you have one hole, go ahead and put the unistrut up there, and then that way you can see where your second hole is going to be, because you want to make sure they both go through a hole in the unistrut. Since I planned on spray painting all of the hardware black, I went ahead and just cleaned it all with a rag and some vinegar. And because the unistruts are galvanized steel, we actually have to use an acrylic spray paint, which I had to go to AutoZone to find. Home Depot or Lowe's did not have it. So now I'm just spray painting all my pieces, and I did 3 coats with the acrylic black spray paint. Before we start putting all the pieces together, if you can see, there's some metal poking out of that hole. So what we're going to use is this metal file here that you can get at Home Depot. And go ahead and wear a mask, and you should be wearing some goggles as well, and just grind that piece down. And now we're going to use these thin metal strips that I bought from Home Depot, and you can see them right here, but what they do is just they add more structural integrity to those bolts. So just like everything else, I measured how long of a piece I needed, and I marked it with my Sharpie and cut it with that same circular saw. And now using that same drill bit, I'm going to poke through those holes just to make a mark on our strip there. So I'm going to hold that strip in place and just give the drill a little tap just to mark it so I know where to drill, and making sure that it doesn't move, I'm going to go mark the other one too. So as you can see, we have 2 marks. And with those marks, now we can clamp it down and actually drill through them, so that way we can put the bolt all the way through this piece that we just made. So now we're going to start putting it all together. So we're going to put it through, and we're going to get our bolt with a washer first. So a washer and the bolt, and it's going to poke through just like that. So we're going to poke it through the hole in the structure, and then we're going to put a washer on top, followed by a lock washer, and then that's going to be followed by our nut. So now just with my hands, I'm going to screw that nut down, which is going to push the bolt up, which is going to give us more room to work with. And now working in reverse order, we're going to put a nut on top of that, followed by a lock washer, which is then going to be followed by one of our flat washers. So now we're going to put our last piece on the inside of the van, which is that flat bar that we just put a hole through. So you're going to put the bolt through that hole, and then we're going to tighten it all the way up just as much as we can with our hands just to get it nice and secure. And then now we can see at the top of the van that it's poking through. So now that the inside's taken care of, on the outside we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to put a washer, a lock washer with a nut, and then followed by a washer with the crossbar right on top. And now that I have them all in place, it was a dry fit. I like the way they look, and now we can use the Loctite, which is going to lock those nuts onto the bolts. So don't worry, we don't have to take anything apart. What I'm going to do is just loosen all of the nuts on the bolts just like this, so I can have enough room to squeeze that Loctite in there. And what that does is it's basically glue that you're putting on the threads, so then when you tighten it back down, it's not going to go anywhere. And after doing that to all of our nuts and bolts, then on the top, I did actually take it apart, and now we're gonna caulk it. What I'm using is a latex caulk. I would avoid using a silicone because it's really hard to take off if you ever want to redo it. But since we have holes in our van, we have to seal it, and that's exactly what I'm doing right here with the caulk. So I put caulk around the hole, and then I pushed that washer down and squeezed it down, creating a seal. Now after putting down a lock washer, now we're gonna use the Loctite again and put a nut on it. And now after tightening that real tight on there, we're actually gonna seal that as well. So I'm gonna use that caulk, and I'm gonna use it all the way around the seam where the nut meets the washer, as well as around the washer. And then right here, I'm just gonna take my finger and just smear it around, creating a nice seal. Now we're gonna put a washer on top of that, and then drop our crossbar into place. And then on top of the crossbar, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna do a washer, a lock washer, and a nut with Loctite. And just like that, we have a custom DIY friendly roof rack. All right, so hopefully that gave you a better idea of how to build your own roof rack. And you can tweak or modify any which way you want depending on what van you have. But I hope this helps show you how to redistribute weight away from the fiberglass rooftop, because a lot of these vans have fiberglass roofs, but you can't actually put a whole bunch of weight on top of it because it's just fiberglass. I loved that I was able to do this because I love the way the van looks with all my stuff up there. And I was just super proud of the fact that I was able to do that.